the thing, though. So React, on the one hand, has been fairly fearless about introducing quote-unquote breaking changes. But at the same time, they've usually been very effective at introducing very comfortable migration paths. And for example, if I'm looking at Next.js, they did not do away with the pages folder. You can have both an apps folder and a pages folder. And just to clarify for those who are not familiar with the nomenclature, pages is the old way of doing things. It's without server components, and apps are the new way with React server components. And to make a long story short, it's more complicated than that, but that's the gist of it. So you can migrate piecemeal. Now, I do agree that once you've decided to embrace React server components, that a lot of your existing, ways of doing things don't really make sense anymore. You gave examples of using, 10-stack query, for example, and you probably don't want to do that if you've embraced
one I can see
the React server component way.
You probably don't need, you may not need that.
Yeah.
And that's fine. And you may use server actions and things like that. But I mean, I'm talking about that I think is not that big of a deal. It's the abandoning MUI. There's a lot of folks out there who they've invested a lot of time in understanding MUI or Chakra or whatever, or AntD, and those, just a raw emotion generally. And what do you do? I mean, their basic suggestion is, hey, use Tailwind. And that is a big change.
Yeah, that's
a huge change. Going from MUI to Tailwind?
By the way, go CSS.
And I know it's CSS, guys, and I know it's but who cares? But no, that's actually for real.
No, I understand what you're saying. I'm saying
front-end devs.
You don't have to use Tailwind. You don't have to use MUI. You could just use CSS. And that tends to always work.
Well, yeah, you could use CSS modules. Right, but
blasphemy.
That is not a casual migration.
No, for sure.
If I'm using MUI in my pages directory, and then I'm going to,
it's beyond that. I told the team, our public site team who are using React, I told them hold off of server components for another 6 months.
Easy.
Yeah, at least, for it to stabilize and stuff like that. Like the whole mutation story is totally still in flux and whatnot.
State management story, so in flux.
Exactly. But I also told them that when you do decide to embrace it, first of all, do it piecemeal as much as you can. Pick one of the parts. Like, for example, pick the blog part of our website and just do it to begin with and see what the experience feels like. But take into account that it's not only about replacing certain things like you just mentioned. It's also about a new way of architecting and thinking about how you write the React application. It's almost a totally new framework. The big difference versus something like switching over to Solid or Quick is that you still can do it more piecemeal than you can with those. Like with Quick, you do have the ability.
I disagree in the case of Solid. I agree in the case of Quick.
Why do you disagree in the case of Solid?
Because you can embed Solid, and I've seen this. You can embed Solid inside of React,
and you can embed, by the way, React inside of Quick. So you can actually move.
You can embed Quick. Yes, you can embed React inside of Quick, but the converse is not true.
Yes,
you can't get the best of Quick if you start with React, right? And I think that's, for a lot of folks, that's a huge migration difference, right? I'm going to go and take this one little carousel or whatever. I'm going to go implement that in Solid and see how it goes, right? That's a big difference from, I want to do the same thing. I want to go and implement this recommendation, but Quick. It's like, no, you have to go and take your entire app, port it into your Quick app, and then you can make your carousel.
What I would actually do, by the way, is split vertically, not horizontally, and basically move certain pages completely over to the other framework. I mean, maybe use some components, but starting to embed solid components inside React sounds a bit scary to me, I have to say. Maybe
It's not.
maybe if I'm using
I mean,
maybe if I'm
really,
using Astro with the islands and have some islands work like this and some other islands work like that, I totally get that it works. I'm not talking from the perspective of scary as in it'll break. I'm talking scary as in you're juggling too many things that look really similar but are actually totally different, and it's different. It's so easy
fair,
to get
fair.
into trouble this way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what is JSX, right? What's
Yeah.
that? Is it by default the React JSX, or is it the solid JSX? I mean, one thing I would recommend if you're going to try any of this is basically go to a monorepo first, start extracting big pieces of your app into shared libraries, right? Factor it nicely, and then then you got a lot of portability options. You could go and embed. You could go and take those components and move them into another version of React, another version Next, or Quick, or whatever, that sort of thing.
But
Why
get more options?
Why monorepo?
Oh,
why not use Git submodules? I mean,
oh,
my thing is,
yeah.
I want to have
I
the
think that's fine
versions be
too.
meaningful.
Okay, fair enough. Actually, I don't see how you don't get that with monorepo, but I think either of those.
Well,
I guess
you
it's
can't
the
get tag in
logical
a
boundaries
monorepo.
that are interesting to me. It's
You
not
can't-
the necessarily the specific mechanics.
Well, the problem I have with monorepo is Git tag becomes useless. Something
Fair.
that is basically fundamental to every workflow I've ever had.
Sure.
You throw out the window, and I don't understand how you're supposed to repair that.
Oh,
Like,
sure.
what's the alternative once you've thrown away Git tag?
Right. Okay. So cool. As long as we're talking about libraries, as long as we're talking about externalizing into libraries, whether you use Git submodules as your modus operandi for that, or whether you use a monorepo, really just dealer's choice on that one.
But how can you use it in a monorepo if you don't have Git tags? Like this is the thing. So if I have 4 libraries that I want to export, I can only use one Git tag. I can't Git tag you can't say I want to Git tag this folder. You Git tag and that's it. Git tag is for the repository. That's like, how do you get past that? What is the solution to that?
As far as I know, so TurboRepo and NX, which are the kind of two big ones in this space, right? They can look at a particular version and say that this, as long as you're doing your versions properly in the package JSONs, and you're actually like,
but that should come
as
from
if
the
they're
Git
externalized.
tag. Git tag should influence package.json, not the.
Okay. Oh yeah, I guess. Okay, so fine. Let's just say we want to use Git submodules, right? The point is that we want to go and externalize. We want to put a boundary between the framework choice, like the meta framework choice, like Next.js or Quick or that sort of thing, and our sort of business logic implementation in components or whatever. And so, yeah, you can move that into a Git submodule or whatever.
These days, by the way, I'd be inclined to move as much of the business logic to the back end in one way or another. But to be honest, by the way, just an interesting story. You know what we used to do at Wix with these sorts of things, and I'm talking about really big applications there. We would rewrite them from scratch. At Wix, literally, like I was at Wix 7 years, and we rewrote our core application from scratch. Depends how you count it, but either 2 or 3 times during that period of time.
Cool. And how many devs did you have?
Lots. but
enough to actually keep your main stuff.
But here's the thing:
incrementing at the time that you're actually building the new stuff, and that's the trick.
No, but what we really had, which made the difference, we had a core group of something like 10 super experienced, very knowledgeable developers who've been with the company for a long time and knew the code inside and out. So that really made a huge difference. And we had the project architect literally knew the entire source code by heart, which was insane.
It's been a long time since I've done that. Actually, I think I know my entire code base that I'm working on now by heart, but it's not that big.
No, I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of lines of code.
That's nuts. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You would ask him, like, this function, what does it do? Oh, no. What's the name of the function that does X? And he would, that was pretty insane. Look, it's there's a reason that people hate rewrites, but sometimes you really need to bite the bullet. Sometimes the slow migration, and by the way, at Next, like I said, we did something interesting. That transition from WordPress to React, with Next.js. Like I said, the data stayed put, but the entire code was rewritten from scratch. And again, we did it by vertically splitting. So we looked at the different segments, and we migrated the blog, and then we migrated the FAQ, and then so that's the way that we dealt with it. So we kept on,
and in each one of those, you're basically cleaving off not just the specific piece of functionality, but also solving a lot of the little issues along the way. Like, okay, you take the smallest example, like the FAQ, and it's like, okay, this involves hitting the back end CMS or whatever.
Actually, the biggest, the most significant constraint in all these cases was to have a really good, strong set of end-to-end tests and make sure that they always pass. The first version does not try to improve the UI or the functionality. It might improve performance or other stuff on the inside. I don't know, the security model, but it's not going to touch anything in the actual UX of the application. That would be done afterwards. After you've successfully migrated, you maintain a backlog of the things you want to fix, and then you fix them. But the first version,
you port bugs and all.
Yeah, the first version is port bugs and all. In terms of UX bugs.
Yeah. What I meant was, when I think about like how during these migrations, there's always some unknowns. Like, how are we going to go and get the data? How are we going to go mutate the data or whatever? That sort of thing. And when you think about the different parts of the application, some parts stress the whole stress a lot, and others are pretty lightweight, in their connection to the back end. And so you start with the ones that are more lightweight because that's easier to port. I would think.
But that approach of using the two companies that I worked, that are Next Insurance and Wix before that, each did it independently, but they both used this approach, and in both cases it worked. Have a strong set of end-to-end tests,
EDE test,
and just make sure that they keep on working throughout the migration process.
Yep.
And don't fall into the trap of if we're migrating, let's also,
upgrade at the same time.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Totally agreed.
And also make sure that management and product are on, have bought in, that they don't expect, let's say, new features during the key migration phases.
Right. Or if they do, then both teams are then you got one team that's doing the newer features, and then the other
and
team's
even
doing the
that has a
migration,
significant cost.
And that gets hairy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. It slows everybody down. It slows both things down, but sometimes that's not an option.
For sure. Look, we're living in the real world. If there's an important business case, then you deal with it. But just make sure that they understand that there's going to be a price to pay, and consequences to such changes. Yeah.
And it also means like pitching things in a way as this is a really good engineering skill, actually, would be to learn how to pitch changing your platform or whatever, but whatever kind of technical change you want to make, learn how to pitch it, not just to engineers, but how to pitch it to managers, how to pitch it to product managers, how to pitch it to product
By the way,
managers.
from my experience,
See,
in many cases,
learn those kind of communications.
Yeah, but in many cases, at the end of the day, and by the way, that's something that Alex Russell kind of rails against, is the fact that they can be suckers. If you're going to pitch a technical thing with conviction, there's a good chance that you can get management buy-in, because at the end of the day, they trust the engineers to make the technical decisions. Now, the good ones, ask about the cost, the risks, the whatnot. But at the end of the day, if you say, yeah, this is the way that we're currently using is a dead end, blah blah blah, and that's the way we need to go, you'll probably get buy-in.
But that's actually making business level points. If it is a dead end, right? What you're saying is we can't deliver on the capabilities you want, and this new platform will allow us to deliver on the capabilities that you want, and you're just putting that in business terms as opposed to like raw technical terms.
For sure. Although, to be honest, at the end of the day, there is no real dead end. It's just the cost.
It's just a question of
the cost
right,
keeps
exactly.
going up, but yeah. So, and then it becomes a question again of when to bite the bullet. So right. Your basic, but going back to that point, and I think that will be probably the point that we wrap up on. So you're saying that what you're saying is that there's a lot, and again, you do a lot of training. I'm assuming you engage with a lot of these companies that are looking at these technologies and thinking about them. You're saying that you are seeing a lot of pushback against React Server Components.
Definitely. Yeah, there are folks on the front lines who don't understand what the value is at all. And as I say, there's a larger contingent than we would have thought of client-side rendering folks who are like, yeah, this doesn't advantage me at all. And
I don't totally agree with that, by the way.
Are significant.
Because React Server Components, from what I understand, speaking with Dan and also listening to some of the other content, the main goal is not so much about SSR and avoiding hydration. Those are like, benefits, but they're almost side benefits. The big goal, which you can ask why React is trying to achieve this, but that's what they are trying to achieve, is about how to better manage data flow from the back end to the front end, and from the front end to the back end. They talk about the componentization of the data and state management. So it's really about writing the React Server Components as those things that access the backend microservices and the database, and then all the data from that point on trickling down as props from the server to the client, and then the data.
And at the point when it hits the client, then you get the frosting of the props and all that. Yeah, absolutely.
And then the other way around again, the data bubbling up via function calls. So if you
server actions.
So these are the server actions, which are effectively just functions, and
effectively just APIs. Really,
well, they're RPCs. They're implemented over an API, but it's not like you're not explicitly writing the gets and the puts. Or the posts, actually, sorry. You're calling a function. So you're getting a lot of these micro APIs and a lot of coupling, but what do you care? Because you're writing the backend and the front end code at the same time. So coupling is less of an issue. But that's what I think that they're trying to push. Now, it's an interesting question of why they're trying to push this. I mean, what's their motivation? Is it that they all got bored with just doing a
Yeah.
front end.
I'm not sure what Meta's interest in this is, because Meta doesn't actually SSR that much, as far as I know.
I have no idea.
I mean, I haven't been on Meta. I haven't been on Facebook in 10 years, but I don't remember them ever really SSRing all that much. Like everybody's page is individualized and personalized.
So
completely.
Yeah. So there is a big question about, why is the React core team doing the things that they're doing? Why are they now working on a compiler?
That I kind of understand. Okay.
Well, I don't know. Have you actually seen it or played with anything?
No, I have not seen React Forget. No. I mean, is anybody outside of Meta? Really?
I have no idea.
I mean, I'm sure some heavy
really,
hitters
really wary of this. In a lot of ways, I'm more wary of it than I am of React server components.
Definitely. I mean, if you don't write your components the React way, and I've definitely seen folks who do not, like they're working around the VDOM because they think that like the VDOM is wildly expensive and blah 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 blah. So they're doing everything manually. That's not going to. You got to follow. Basically, you got to write React as idiomatic React, and then it will probably work. But it's interesting. Like every other framework, like Solid as a compiler, Vue as a compiler,
but Solid,
Angular as a compiler,
that's not exactly
Quick as a compiler.
That's not exactly the same. If we're looking at Solid is just compiling the JSX. It's not really compiling the JavaScript itself. So from my understanding,
I mean, they all do portions of it, right?
I do agree. First of all, I have no idea what React Forget is going to look like, so it's difficult for me to comment on it. And I'm very ambivalent about what Svelte is doing. Because I like to say that
you didn't like the Rich Harris talk.
I like to say that if we could have sent Rich back in time to 95 when Brendan Eich was creating JavaScript in the DOM, and Rich would have like convinced him to do Svelte instead, that might have been awesome, but that's not what happened. And now effectively Svelte looks like JavaScript and HTML and CSS, but is actually something totally different. And that's kind of an issue for me. Something that looks like something, but is actually something really different. Like the let keyword in Svelte and the let keyword in JavaScript means something totally different.
Yeah. He's right. He's basically overloading let for props.
Let is reactive in Svelte. Import,
you get the $colon
import
thing.
Are for passing parameters into components. Is like, it's a different programming language that kind of masquerades as JavaScript, and it's a nice programming language, but I don't know. But
it is weird. It is weird to think that like React is now the only kind of pure JavaScript framework, right? I mean, it's the only one that doesn't require a compiler, other than JSX, which is fine. I mean, we've had
no.
for
I
a
think
while,
that
but like, it is literally
AJ is shaking his head.
Push it in okay.
A transpiler is a compiler.
But everybody, okay, fine. But everybody is JSX. There is no native JSX, right? It has to be transpiled.
Well, that's the same with almost everything in the JavaScript ecosystem. Even what people call JavaScript isn't actually JavaScript. It isn't actually in the standard. Isn't actually implemented in a browser.
You could have used template strings,
but it's not writing significant.
You could have used template expressions, by the way, instead of JSX, but nobody does.
Yeah, sure. That didn't exist yet.
Yeah, but you can do you can change the pragma of JSX and make it call whatever function you want, and it's only like it's a very, very, very thin transpiling.
But then
it's not as big as like Solid. Or Quick. My God, Quick does a lot of
Quick is a totally different story. But Solid, especially if you forget about the Blink stuff, is actually not that different from what React is doing. The problem with Solid is that Solid is doing to React kind of what Svelte is doing to JavaScript. That it looks like React, but it really isn't. So it's kind of subverting the expectations of React developers. But if you don't have those expectations, then I don't see Solid as being that much quote unquote worse than React. The Solid compiler at the end of the day, and it doesn't really do that much, is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, I don't know. If you attach a prop, if you attach a value, a signal to a property or an element or an attribute on a tag, right? It's actually going to go and literally write the DOM code to like hit that and change it when the signal changes.
Oh yeah,
that's right. That's it's writing code, right? As opposed to JSX, which is basically just, hey, whatever your function is, React dot
but then wrap it in a React create element and whatnot.
There you go, and that's it. That's all it's doing. It's everything else is pretty much just JavaScript.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, we can lament.
This has been fun.
Yeah, interesting. We live in interesting times. That's for sure.
We do. Like, we could talk for hours.
About this. So one last question before we go. What's your next video?
Actually, it's kind of interesting. I've been getting a lot of pushback about memory management and people not liking the having a really negative reaction to the spread operator and that it's this memory hogging beast and all this sort of stuff. And it was going to be interesting. I'm going to try and basically saying, well, what we really wanted React to do, as opposed to being the functional thing, was to instead be mutable data structures, like just straight up, like give me the object, allow me to do the array, allow me to do push, and I'll send you back the array or whatever. And right. And to basically show if it would be a performance disaster for us to do that.
Did you see that kerfuffle around the pre-act signals in React?
Oh yeah. I don't know what the kerfuffle was.
The kerfuffle was that React changed. Well, it turns out that they were monkey patching stuff inside of React in order to get the fine-grained reactivity to work. And then React updated their version or something, and that broke. So people started report.
Oh, right, because there's a Preact signals for React.
Exactly.
Right, exactly.
So thing, because Preact signals for Preact is fine. It's created by the Preact core team.
They control everything.
But
the
Preact signals for React monkey patch stuff inside of React. And then React upgraded, they changed something, and the monkey patching failed, and people started opening bugs in the React repository about them, breaking Preact signals in React, and that really upset some React core team members to the point that Dan Abramov basically came out and said, this is bad. You should not be using this library. This is a terrible thing to do, and don't use it. Something along those lines.
I don't disagree. I think when I covered it, I was like, this is not, I would not use this. I mean, it's cool. It's very interesting. But at the point where you have to start putting in pragmas and that sort of stuff. And I know I was, because I knew what they were doing. They were just basically getting a ref on whatever the component, whatever the element was, and then just bang, 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 doing updates. And you're clearly breaking the VDOM model with it. Clearly. Yeah.
So,
because the VDOM is out of sync with what's actually in the DOM. And that's
the whole point of React is the VDOM. So
right. So why, I thought it was interesting. I thought it was fun. It's a kind of interesting hack, but I wouldn't put that in production. You kidding me? Out of your mind?
Yeah. So going back to your point, I'm kind of surprised that people are concerned about memory. I mean, why?
Well, that's another thing is, like, when you think about a React component, they're getting all bent out of shape about, one little spread. And it's like, do you not understand that, like, anytime you make a JSX element, right? That's calling React.create element, which is allocating memory, and then it's taking all the props and creating an object, and that's allocating memory.
Who cares?
Oh, I know. Yeah. Well, what happened actually? Here's why they care. So what happened was some guy came out with an article that said, "I sped up TANSEC 1,000 times." TANSEC.
Oh yeah, I saw that article
1,000 times by removing the
spread.
You know, and it was the spread,
but
and it was the classic spread issue, which was like you were inside of a reduce,
from,
and you were using a spread inside a reduce, and it was dumb.
They were going from O of n to the third, or something like that, to O of n, or something like that.
Yeah.
But the problem was not the memory allocation. The problem was the rendering of the VDOM, the act of the computation. It's that the cost of the computation was O of n squared or O of n to the third rather than O of n. I mean,
I thought it was as simple as they were going through a big old loop.
I know it was a loop
and
in a
every
loop.
time they were creating, it was a loop in a loop, but they were creating a new object each time.
The cost was not the
loop
memory allocation. The cost was copying the values from one to the other. The cost was the fact that the algorithm was O of n to the squared rather than O of n. The problem was not that you were allocating more memory. Unless you're writing the next Facebook client, which needs to run for 12 hours straight, or you're running a node server that needs to service a lot of requests, you should, in most cases, care less about memory consumption in JavaScript.
Yeah, I buy that, and I think
I think we need to do away with map and filter, and especially reduce. If nothing else, we need to just get rid of reduce, and we need to get rid of for each. We need to go back to for.
They're going the total opposite direction. They're adding which, they're adding two spliced, they're adding two sorted.
No,
are
you serious?
They're pushing hard in the opposite direction.
I am dead serious because it's too. I have never seen someone use reduce correctly. I have never in the wild in actual code that people write that aren't the brainiacs at Facebook. I have never in the wild seen someone use reduce correctly.
But there are two problems here, though. First of all, you said reduce, which I can accept, but you also said map and filter, which is more problematic for me because they're fairly straightforward. Map is map A into B, and filter is filter.
I see people do it. I see people do it wrong too, because they'll do mapping inside, they'll do filtering inside of a map or what. It just
if people don't know how to code, then they don't know how to code. But
Go for example doesn't have those. Go just has the for loop. It doesn't have a while loop. It doesn't have a loop. It doesn't.
The second problem is that. And we really need to start wrapping up with this.
I know, but this is so good.
The problem is that React it's like React encourages ternary over ifs.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does, and that I hate it.
JSX is an expression. So you basically you return a JSX. You need to construct a JSX, and the entire JSX thing is an expression. And in JavaScript, unlike other programming languages, statements are not expressions. Unless we get the do expression, which I always hated as an addition to the ECMAScript, but now I think is kind of needed for React, so it probably needs to happen now. So I've gone from opposing it to supporting it.
I think do and for would be great expressions.
Are you familiar with the do expression proposal?
Yeah. I saw it. I think it's great.
What the letter L is a do expression?
Do expression. So go for it.
Okay. Well, so basically, you get a loop where the primitive is the output.
No, it's not. It doesn't need to be a loop. Do expression is x equals do. It's not about a loop.
I'm thinking about a different proposal. Then there was a loop.
No, so.
A loop expression.
No, so that's something. That's something else.
Okay, that's a different one.
So do expressions are basically you do like x equals do, and then you write your code, but your code behaves as an expression. So you can write ifs and you don't need the returns.
Sure.
It's like a sort of an iffy. It's like you're assigning an iffy.
Isn't this what we have at WASM for? So you can run Rust in the browser and then not have to make JavaScript every freaking language that has ever existed since 1955.
I agree. I really hated do expressions because they change the semantics of the language. The semantic.
I love
not that
the
anybody
idea.
uses do.
But that ship has sailed.
Nobody
that
did
ship
do.
sailed
Do while.
No, I'm not talking. That's what I'm saying. It's not do while. It's a do expression. It has nothing to do with the while. They just overloaded the word do for it. But I disliked it because it changes semantics of the language. Because it turns inside the do expression, statements became expressions. So
right, your final statement is
not just
is
the
final
return,
right?
You
it's
can,
an implicit
exactly. And you could do ifs and stuff. So you can write ifs instead of ternaries, and if each if case is just the value. But the thing is that
if they're doing this for React, it's only going to end poorly because ternaries putting a bunch of expressions in line with each other
and do expressions would have fixed it. But
I'm just
look, at the end of the day, I on the one hand I agree with you, AJ. On the other hand, you do need to look at how the majority of people are using a particular language, and
they're using it wrong. The majority of people have no idea what they're doing. The majority of people are just following whatever the super nerds tell them. And they're like, well, if I do what the super nerd tells me, then I'm going to be cool. And if I'm going to be cool, I can put it on my resume.
Yeah. Anyway,
the majority of people have no idea how to program.
I think it's
and I'm not upset with the majority of people on that.
It's been stuck at stage 2 for something like a decade, so I don't know where it's going. But all I'm trying to say is I forget what I was trying to say, but where were we? So JSX is this big expression, and and I forget where we were. So maybe it's time for us to wrap up. Oh yeah, we were talking about what your next video was going to be about.
Yeah, it's about this about
the memory management.
Right.
I can.
And why you don't basically teaching kind of coming at it from the other angle. Everybody's saying, hey, it's a pain in the butt to deal with references. I don't like them. I just want to mutate stuff in place. And basically coming at it from the angle of if we did it that way, it would be horribly inefficient.
But the whole point about React, is immutability, and that's it. And if you're going to be mutating, then you might as well not use React. And if you don't understand how immutability works, that means that you're using React without fully understanding it. So maybe it's time you learn, you watch some more of your videos and learn React more.
Yep.
All this stuff is just too complicated. We need to go back to basic. Just Q basic.
You know how long? You know.
Get rid of the web. Throw the phone in the toilet.
You know how long it took me to shake go-tos?
Oh wow! Really? Okay. I was happy to get out of go-tos.
When
I went to C, I was like, whoop, no more go-tos.
I'm guessing about 10 seconds because you realized the benefit immediately being the wise person that you are.
I realized the benefits, but it took me a long time to properly... It got me into some bad habits about properly structuring code and not diving into coding before I got a good mental grasp of what I was trying to achieve. At the beginning, I was very much like a savant type of a programmer where just throw me at the problem and I'll start hacking away at it.
Sounds like me. I don't know about savant, but that's how I like to do it.
This is the unfair advantage of React. React gets to completely change everything about what they're doing every 2 years and pretend like it's still the same framework. Like they just kludge more stuff on, make it more complicated.
You're not wrong.
And if it takes the experts, if it takes the people who've got a freaking IQ of 165 3 years to figure out, oh, this was a bad idea, I should have never done it. Think about the people that just have, an IQ of 100. They're having to learn this stuff. They're somehow supposed to become proficient, and it's changing every every 6 months there's a new blog article. Oh, we're completely revamping everything. Oh wait, no, we're not. But and then they release it, and then they roll it back. It's just, I'm sorry, I'm just so emotionally compromised. This is maddening. This is absolute. How is any work in the world ever supposed to get done? Can we not just go back to being stupid about the way we do things in a way that just works, instead of just always being so much more brainy and so much?
As a final statement before we go into the picks, I just read an article somewhere that this AI scientist looked at the source code for ChatGPT or something like that, and basically said, "I don't understand how this works. It's a miracle that it even works."
Wow. Okay.
You didn't know how to read Excel macros? So thanks everybody for coming on, and it's been great having you all. We do a section at the end called picks. I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Oh yeah.
Too. So I just want to go ahead and move us through that real quick. Jack, do you have anything?
Yeah, I was listening to Wool, which is the book behind the show Silo, and that is excellent, and it seems to be a really good series. So I'm now on the second book, also just listening to it, and it's been fascinating. It's just a really new author, I guess, Hugh Huey or something like that, and just really great stuff. So enjoying that a lot.
All right, Dan.
Okay, so I think I mentioned that in a couple of past episodes, but I'll mention it again. I'll shout out myself. I'm doing quite a number of conferences this year. This is going to be my record year, I think, in terms of number of conferences that I'm actually speaking at.
Woo!
So yeah, so I spoke at IJS in London. I'm speaking virtually at JS Nation, the conference that you're going to, Jack. I have a talk about comparing the performance of different frameworks. Which framework is more likely to produce fast-running, fast-loading websites? It's more a question of probabilities than anything else. How likely you are to produce a fast website using a particular framework versus a different one. And I'm actually giving that talk again at almost the same time, but live at the conference called J Nation in Portugal. The big difference, by the way, it's funny, like you give the same talk 3 times, but in one conference it's 30 minutes, in another conference it's 20 minutes, and then in the third conference it's 50 minutes. So it actually becomes like a totally different talk. In each one of them, like the kernel is the same, but it becomes
question get asked, all that.
If you need to speak twice as long about something, you're going to say more stuff, obviously. I'm also going to be speaking at the React Next conference in Israel. It's a really big conference, by the way. It's a conference that you should attend sometime, Jack. It's a conference not just about React, but it's around React, obviously, being called React Next. And there are some 1,000 front-end developers in attendance. So it's a really big conference. So the Israeli community for front-end is pretty big. So I'll be speaking there about how different frameworks overcome the cost of hydration, which I've also spoken about on one of our past episodes. And then I'll be speaking about this topic again for a different duration again. I just been accepted to speak at what's it called? Front Conference Zurich in Switzerland at the end of August, beginning of September. So this year is going to be, like I said, like something like 5 or 6 conferences this year, which
no kidding, man. And Next Insurance is totally cool with this. They're like, yeah, man.
Their smile is becoming ever more forced with every additional conference that I mention. Well, look, first of all, I have to give them props that they are fairly forthcoming and even encourage me as a representative of our R&D. Also, some of the like, for example, React Next, like I mentioned, is actually in Israel, and Next Insurance is actually one of the sponsors of the conference. So that's that definitely makes things easier.
Yeah.
So yeah, I help build our brand as a technological oriented organization, forward thinking, etc. Yeah, we do actually sponsor several conferences at Next Insurance, but in Israel primarily. I'm not aware of any conference that we actually sponsor outside of Israel, at least not in the tech part. Yeah. So yeah, I'm enjoying that a lot. And one more, and if I'm doing picks, I'll also pick a book. It's been a while since I picked a book. It's this series of books that I'm reading, which are fantasy books, are not amazing, but are actually quite enjoyable. I'm enjoying. It's easy reading, like kind of like easy listening, only reading. It's called
Reading.
the Demon Cycle series. It's by Peter V. Brett. It's high fantasy. If you're familiar with the term, it's man against demon using magic, and it's kind of
Neat.
it's a different scenario than most other books. Now, like I said, it's not an amazing series, but if you're looking for something engaging, it's definitely that. So those would be my picks.
Very cool.
Cool. And then, as you were mentioning hydration earlier, I also have a hydration pick. So I don't believe in health foods; they're all bogus. But there's this
shill for Super Beets.
Kind of, yeah. I'm kind of going to shill for Super Beets, but not Super Beets.
All right.
I'm going to shill for LMNT, Element. It's salt powder. It's flavored salt powder, but it's good in an interesting way. So, and if you mix the orange salt with the orange Crystal Light caffeinated, it's particularly interesting. So it's just something to try. They're ridiculously expensive. I've got a buddy who ordered them when they were first starting out, or had a big Black Friday sale or something, and got them all half off. It's like $1 a packet.
Oh Lord!
But if you think about it, soda or whatever is going to be 50 cents a can. So and these are good for 24 to 32 ounces, depending on how strong you like the flavor. So it's like, not that. Anyway, but you got to buy a bunch of them to get it at $1 a packet. So anyway, there's a $14 trial pack of only 8. So now they're like $1.50 each, but it lets you try every flavor. So if you wanted to, it's just interesting. It's interesting, and it's an alternative. If you have the pathology that you must have flavored drinks,
you drink it, you don't snort it.
Not as
my wife does that. Yeah. Like, there are definitely people who just don't like the taste of water. Not that water has a taste implicitly. I get the lack of taste is a thing.
Well, and if you're in Oregon, it's different than if you're in Pleasant Grove, Utah.
Yeah, right. My daughter hates California water, loves Oregon water for some reason.
Everybody loves Oregon water because it's like water the way that God intended. Literally, the water flows from the mountain, it flows down through the rocks, and it collects all of the. I think magnesium is one of the things that gives water its flavor, because all the purifiers add magnesium to the water, and that's supposed to make it taste better. But the good Lord did not intend for us to drink toxins. He didn't intend for us to drink chlorine and fluoride. That wasn't in his master plan of like, here's how to enjoy the earth, folks. Not that I'm permissed to speak on behalf of the Almighty, but I just have a hunch. Okay. And then the other thing that I'll pick is MikroTik. If you like the CLI, I mean, they have a UI, and everybody raves about their Winbox UI. Their UI is so basic, but MikroTik, the router, it's a router or switches. And you can do VLANs, which is a little bit, it's like, it's such a simple concept once you understand it, but it's difficult to explain and understand it first. But basically allow you to have, so now I have it so that all of my, well, I actually did this with the Unify, but then I extended it with the MikroTik. But I have in my house, for everything that's either plugged in or wireless, there's segmented networks. So anything that I don't personally control, like I'm not, any set-top device or IoT
Alexa
device
or whatever.
Well, I don't even have those because they're, but yes, the things that are like that are on one network. And then the things that I use for work are on another network. And then the stuff that the rest of the family uses are on another network. So like my wife's phone and, so there's 3 networks, and the MikroTik allows you to do stuff like that and so much more. And so does the Unify from Ubiquiti. But anyway, their command line interface is what I'm raving about, because they're more Unix than Unix. I've never seen a command line that is so amazing. Everything is a file and or a folder. I mean, it can also be a folder. So I think they basically have a custom shell, and everything that you can do with it, you can SSH in, and then you get dropped in this custom shell, and all of the subcommands that you have are, so a command is a folder, and if you run the command, it runs. But if you run the command and then what's inside of its folder, which is weird that something could be both a file and a folder, but it's this shell abstraction thing, then when you tab, it shows you all of the subcommands. And then when you select a subcommand and put a space and you tab again, then it will show you all of basically the flags. And then if you select a flag, then it will, autocomplete to the equal sign. And then if you tab again, it will give you all of the options, like the ports or the VLANs or whatever it is that's available, that's allowed to be put after that thing. So it is the most autocomplete, most user discoverable thing that I've ever seen in my life. And I thought that Fish was the best shell in the world. MikroTik has the best shell in the world. I don't know that you could replicate it in a Linux system, because you can't have something that's both a file and a folder in a Linux system. That type of abstraction doesn't avail itself to existing. But you could see somebody writing a completions file, kind of like the way they do for Fish.
Yeah.
And then have it so that the completions file allows something to be presented that way. And that's kind of what they do. They've got some weird custom shell. It's probably like a busy box type thing where all the commands are actually in one single file. I don't know how they implement it, but it's just amazing. It's super discoverable. It's super easy to use, super easy to get right.
Oh, well, I'm saying, if you want to make shell stuff, then do their thing. Like whatever that is. That's what I'm saying. Sounds like
you want to make shells. Yes, I think anybody who's going to make a command line tool should experiment with MikroTik. The problem being that you have to learn a little bit of networking.
Right.
Well, you gotta learn the networking to experiment with it, because if you don't know any of what it does, then you have to understand some aspect of the networking to be able to understand how fluid this thing is. But yes, I wish that everybody could have this experience and have that in their mind next time they do a CLI. This is the future that we need.
No, the future that we're going to get is ChatGPT as a CLI.
I don't know if that's going to help us.
Basically,
anyway, what are you going to say, Dan? Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah. Basically, instead of telling ChatGPT, give me a shell script that does X, you're going to have something like a ChatGPT CLI, and you just tell it do X, and it will figure out what it needs to do in order to achieve X. That's what I'm guessing.
I think that's going to be the case for all UI. Honestly, I think the future of UI is that you're going to have basically headless applications that know how to vend data up to a UI system where I can basically just say, oh, if this is my bank, I want a new custom panel on here and then you just type it out. Like I want show me my spending on Magic the Gathering cards over the past 6 months, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And it was just bang, there's a graph. And like, that's your interaction
for
model
the longest time, I used to
with
say
software going forward.
For the longest time, I used to say that Google has the best user interface. You just say what you want in English, and more or less, and you get the results. And Chat
the search interface.
And ChatGPT
Right, yeah.
and ChatGPT just takes it in a couple of steps forward. Now, obviously, you're on a risk that every 10 times you enter a command, it does something totally different, like you erase your hard drive or whatever, or, but
or lie to you.
Yeah.
Just make stuff up.
Yeah. Fine.
That sounds like something you want to hear.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, it seems the logical place to go. Why do I need to remember all the complicated Git commands instead of just telling it, what I wanted to achieve?
Yeah. If you're on OS X, you can use Fig, you can use Warp. They both have basically AI interfaces where you can just type in, I need a command that, runs across all
but
my
I don't
files
want I need a command. I want to basically say do X. Why do I don't need you to teach me how to do X. Just do it.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Fair.
I don't know. That scares me. That's
Which one?
I can't see the command line going that way entirely, because people that use the command line are using it because they want things to be fast and exact. You want something to be reproducible. That's the beauty of the command line, is I don't have to go figure it out every single time. I figure it out once, and then anytime I need to do it again, I just run that command or that alias or that script.
I never remember the git command to push a new branch.
GGP.
You should not have to do that if you're running a recent version of Git. That's the default.
I know.
Okay, fair enough. But I mean, I also use ZSH, and they're really good. There's a really good Git plugin for ZSH. Comes out of the box.
You're stuck in the 80s. You need to get up with the 90s, man.
Oh, what's 90s then?
Fish.
Oh, okay. All right.
Have you used Fish?
I have not used it.
Dude, I'm telling you, man. Use Fish once. It's one of those things that's kind of hard to describe. Use it for 5 minutes, and you'll never use ZSH again. One, because you don't have to do any config. There is no, well, I think somebody did create an Oh My Fish. I don't know what the purpose of it is though, but Fish is Oh My ZSH already.
Okay.
Like Fish is all the options you want are just turned on by default. It's just, it just does the thing. The one downside is you don't run bash in Fish. Fish is not a bash interpreter.
Oh,
so you can run your bash scripts. You can type bash and then the script.
Right. Yeah.
You can't copy and paste bash loops, for example. You can't go find something on Stack Overflow and then copy and paste it and have it.
Yeah, that's okay.
Do the
I
thing.
mean, I when I'm writing scripts, I shebang bash at the top.
Yeah, then you're good. Because Fish is exclusively, from my perspective, it is exclusively for interactive shell. I would never use it for scripting.
To be honest, like the reason I didn't touch Fish was the dumbest reason ever, which is I don't actually like the band Fish. PHISH.
That's an interesting.
I mean, I'll be honest. I know it sounds incredibly stupid, but like it's like shells to me are like kind of like it works. But like, and ZSH was like, oh wow, that's like my regular bash, or TCSH or something like that, but better.
And are you on Mac too?
Yeah.
Okay, so check out webinstall.dev. Look for Fish and look for iTerm2, and there's some cheat sheets there that you might find useful. Anyway,
I use Brew, so can I just Brew install Fish?
I wouldn't recommend using Brew unless you install Brew with Webby, because if you install Brew with Webby, it won't conflict with your system files like when you install Brew normally. Uses the same Brew installer, but passes the options that are in the secret menu that nobody knows about. That it makes the installs take longer because it has to compile more things from source, so that it uses your home path rather than using system paths.
Right. Yeah.
But then you never get that problem where Brew updates libSSL and then curl breaks. If you're familiar with that problem.
I haven't seen that in a while, but I've definitely seen that.
Yeah. And then the other one with SSL. Anyway, everybody, thanks for joining in. It's been great to have you. And
been great to be here.
Catch you.
Thank you for hosting, AJ.
Yeah, for sure.
You're welcome.
Yeah.